Hi guys, it's Josh. I'm here with Brian Anderson, Field CTO. Today we're going to talk about Terraform, Cato, and dynamic resources. Take it away, Brian.
Very good. So in other videos, we talked about how to create a resource, how to initialize the Cato provider. Today, we're going to look at how to use that at scale. So on the left side here, we have our Terraform documentation, our Cato socket site. Again, the name of the provider is Cato. The name of what we want to create is socket site. So that's the resource that we're looking at here. And so I want to first initially, I want to create a site to be able to create additional things on top of that site.
Yep.
Let's go ahead and define these. I'm actually going to change the name of my branch site to we'll call it my first site is what I want to call this. And this is just the local name inside of Terraform, what I want to call this.
And that'll
And
be the same name
this
in CMA or no?
doesn't
No,
have to
that's
be,
this is
no.
this okay, this is just a okay, cool.
And I'll just call this my first branch site. How about that?
Okay.
And I need to learn how to type. Apparently, so here we go. There's my first branch site. Great. And so now I've got these things defined. Let's jump back into our terminal window here. I'm going to do a Terraform init. I see that then downloads my provider for me here, and then it initializes. And then I'm going to go ahead and do a Terraform apply. And I'm going to type auto approve so that I don't have to say yes. It's going to go ahead and create that resource for me straight inside of my Cato management application account.
Okay, so it named it my first branch site and then it added that range to it, and now it's building that site in the Cato CMA.
Correct. And all
Sweet.
of these values that you see here are computed values that will assign something to it if I don't tell it what it is. These
Got
are
it.
things that get assigned at that time. If
Got
I
it.
get back into my Cato management application account, I can see here that I should have a my first branch site
My
account.
first branch site. Sweet.
Fantastic.
That's pretty
So what,
cool.
what I what I'd like to do is take this a step further and maybe make some configurations on top of my branch site. Common scenarios may be that you want to go add some networks.
Yep.
Maybe you want to add static host reservations to be able to use in rule sets. So
Yep.
typically, if I want to add a host, let's start with adding one first, and we'll talk about how to make that more dynamic. So adding a static host, this is the first time we're connecting two resources together. And so what I mean by that is if I go and put in let's go grab this static host resource here. I copy it here. I notice that there's three attributes with the static host, and I'm going to call this my host, just to give it a name. And in here, there is a reference to a Cato socket site, but then there's a name of the resource that I want to reference, my first site
Oh yeah.
dot
Okay.
ID. So let me go back over to our window here and say Terraform. I'm going to say Terraform show, and Terraform show gives me everything that is in state. And I notice that I have a Cato socket site, my first site ID. So I can reference this value with this syntax right here. So Cato socket site, my first site dot ID. Now I can dynamically append
Oh.
whatever this is. It didn't exist before, but it does now. So now Terraform knows don't create that one until this one is done.
And you could do that with any of the resources now that
Any
you've
of the
had. Okay.
resources,
Yeah. Okay.
these are called outputs. I can use an output for one resource and pass it to the
Yeah.
next one. And so now I can then kind of daisy chain these together, if you will. So now I have the ability I'm going to use the same network range here, and I want to define an IP address for this static host that I want to create. And I'm
Yep.
going to call this host 100, just so I know because it's static host 100. And when I go back to my this window here, I could say Terraform plan. And I have an alias for Terraform. I just type TF. You can create aliases in your bash RC file, but that's so Terraform plan will get you the same outcome. It's telling me it's going to add a static host resource. So if I do a TF,
And it's using that state file because it knows the state of it, right? Like we've
that's
talked
right.
about in other videos. Okay, cool.
That's right. So auto approve. I now know that I can run apply auto approve. It's going to go ahead and create this static host entry for me on top of that same network. And I should go back into my Cato management application and take a look at this screen here. And I should see an additional static host or one static host pop up that I just created. And so here's my static host that I just
Nice.
created.
That's so
Now,
cool.
the real world scenario is I don't have one static host.
Yeah.
I have, I'm gonna go ahead and remove that from my file. And if I run apply, it's going to then delete that because now it's missing from my configuration. What I really want to do is I want to create lots of static hosts. And maybe
Yeah.
I have static hosts that come from a CMDB or I've got a
Yeah.
sheet or something like
It's
that.
dynamic. You want it to change. The reservations
Exactly.
change. Yeah, exactly.
So let's go into the Cato documentation here under guides. and I'm going to go just like you can to this build static host from CSV. I actually want to use a CSV file to populate all of my static hosts. And let's copy exactly what this is here. And so if I copy this code here into my local file, I can see that it has a reference to a file path. It's using a variable called CSV file path. And we've actually organized this a little bit differently. In previous or other videos, we talked about adding variables directly inside the file that we're in. But I put my versions into a versions.tf, variables into a variables file, and my main file, anything with tf as an extension,
Hmm.
Terraform will evaluate all in the same directory like it's one big file essentially. So I could just
Yeah.
organize it how I want to. So in my variables file, I have a path to a file called static hosts.csv, right?
Does
And
that
so
create that or automatically based on that in there when you created that, or how's that
no,
when
I, I
that,
create
oh,
I
you
created
did.
it. Yeah, I created a file called statichost.csv. If you go into my file explorer, the file explorer will show you that I
Oh,
have
got it.
this.
So you just made
Yep,
one already ready to go, so
yep.
it's ready to rock. Okay,
I've
got
got
it.
one record in here, and I've got a variables file that contains my variables, the versions that contain the versions, and then
Got
this
it.
is where I put my configurations, right?
Yep.
So I'm having this variable here called statichost.csv, and I've got a site ID reference. I actually don't want that. Let's get rid of that because I'm going to use one that we just created off the site that I
Yeah,
just have.
for sure. The
So
one we just did.
in here, so I've created this socket site, and now I have this new resource that we just copied from the documentation. But notice that there's a new line. There's a for each line. And what this line does is it says, hey, everything inside of your CSV file
Hmm.
that I load into this, it's going to say, this is Terraform's way of saying load a CSV file from this path. So I'm loading in the CSV this static host.csv, it's going to load it into this, call it like an object or a list, right? It gives me
Yeah.
a list from this. And then say for each of these, I want to actually do this for each one of the records inside of that file.
Okay.
Right now, we only have one. But let's take a
Yeah.
look at how this works. So in this site ID, I actually want to reference not a variable, but I want to say Cato socket site dot my first site dot ID. So this says that all of my static hosts are going to be added to this site.
Hmm.
And then for the name, for each value here, I want to use the
And
name
is
of
that value in the
the
spreadsheet, the
CSV.
name and the IP and MAC address? So those are the columns in the spreadsheet?
That's exactly right. So this
Okay.
is IP, the name, and the MAC address. Those are
And
the three
that's how it
columns.
should be formatted.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
And you can see that directly right here in the
Oh, okay,
documentation
perfect.
that
So you already have the
example.
example one. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
You
Okay,
just
cool.
copy that into a file.
Got
And
it.
it even has examples of your variables that you can define for file path and so forth.
Oh, nice.
And then how to use that is right here. So I'm literally copying and pasting what's in our
But you
what's
could have thousands in here, right? Like as you add them. Okay. Yep.
yep, and we're going to in a moment.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
so in here, let's go ahead and say each dot value, that's the name of the column, and then the MAC address, the name of the column. So now what I've done is for this site ID, I want to create n number of records. So let's go back over to our terminal window and say Terraform plan. I want to see what it's going to tell me that it's going to do. Do I have a syntax problem? Am I okay? It's going to check my files and say, okay, here's what I'm going to do. It checks it against my state file, which is here. Remembering what I did before, and it says, oh, I found one. I found one record, 20.100. That's the one record that I have in here. It says, I'm
Okay.
going to go create one resource. So let's go
Okay.
ahead and run Terraform apply,
Hmm.
auto approve. It's going to
And
go create that
and it
resource.
pulled that from the Statico CSV
Right.
because of that too. Okay.
Now that we're in the age of AI, let's say I'm going to go in here and say add 50 lines to this file, incrementing each line by number. Let's see what it says. I misspelled incrementing. You can't type apparently, but let's see what AI can do with that. It's going
We
to
are
go.
living in the future, people. You're seeing it
That's
here
right.
first.
So
That's
here we are.
awesome, actually. Yeah, that's cool.
It's going to go create me 50 records.
Yeah.
Now, and this is again Copilot in an IDE integrated development environment using code generation there. And now I can say Terraform plan, and what's it going to do? It's going to tell me that it found 49 records.
That's awesome.
Just by changing my CSV and
Yeah.
having this for each block here, I can now say I'm going to add 49 more records. And now when I say
Yeah.
Terraform apply, I'm going to watch all of these get created in bulk.
Yeah.
And what
Yeah.
that means is I can now have a dynamic data source. This
Yeah.
is useful for think about the number of rules that you might want to,
Totally.
or the number of records, the number of networks, or number of whatever. I
Yeah.
can then pass in, oh, this is fun. Oh, I need to. So this is actually a very helpful and it's a very good error to look at here. So the Cato API doesn't like it when multiple modifications today are made to a site record. And I'm glad that we covered this because what I need to run is a setting called parallelism equals one. And today, in the future, we're
Mm,
changing this, but today I need to tell Terraform to go one modification at a time. So
got it. Yeah,
parallelism
that makes
equals one,
sense.
and this is also present in our documentation, which is at the top of our provider.
I'm actually glad we saw
How to
that
run
then.
that.
That's good. Because that
So
way
it's
then,
glad I'm
yeah,
glad that we ran into this. So
me
parallelism
too.
equals one says, hey, do one configuration at a time
Totally.
so that we can have parallelism equals one. If I could, I'll just take it straight from, yeah, it has a dash in front of it. There you go. And that is what we need to run for, maybe it's two dashes.
Isn't it
Perfect.
equals one? You have a dash. Go back
Oh,
to the
yeah,
run.
that's right. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Perfect. So parallelism equals one will then rerun my
Look at that high
my
value over
dynamic
here.
data source,
I'm
adding
QA.
value every day. That's right. So this will then take my my data that I have from there and then force it to go in sequence. So this is a very important thing to run into because
Yeah.
when you make your site configurations and network configurations, for now we need to have parallelism equals one as a part of our deployment process. So you will get the multiple concurrent edit
Yeah, and if
feedback from the
if you
API.
watch this far, like I'm not a Terraform guy, obviously Brian is like what I'm starting to see and learn is that you can almost like Terraform is just the method to get at doing some of these tasks a lot faster. So it's like this is such a great way to be able to do bulk management at state. So it's actually an incredible way to be able to manage large installs, large designs to where you need to be able to make changes and keep that state. So it's super powerful. Terraform is just I know it can be hey, it's scary, but it's just the mechanism to do what you just did. That wasn't that bad.
Many organizations actually have a standard to use solutions like Terraform or Azure DevOps or Pulumi or other things like that as the only way that they can deploy because
Yeah,
configurations cannot be manually entered by someone. They have to be
totally.
coming from a version control system. And the benefit is when I commit it to a version control system, I can then revert back to the last known good state. I can then
Totally.
always have
Yeah.
a configuration to roll back to and know where I'm going,
Yeah.
where I'm going to and where I'm coming from. So
That's awesome.
I was able to run add 50 and I guarantee that it's quicker to add it from a CSV like this than it is to click that number of buttons.
Maybe that'll be another video. Well, like I'll do it manually and you'll do it.
We could
You
do a
beat
race
me.
here,
You
right?
beat me.
Here we go.
That's
So this is
awesome. That's so
yeah,
cool.
so that is how to chain together multiple resources and to make your data source dynamic for being able to use things like JSON data sources or CSV data sources and so forth. So that
Awesome.
is resource management at scale and making it dynamic with Cato.
That's awesome. Thanks so much, Brian. Appreciate it. This was probably the most helpful video because this is a major issue for a lot of people because they're managing tons of data, and this is a simple and effective way to be able to do it. So, thanks for your time. Appreciate it, guys.